everybody, and welcome back to another video. Just recently, we got released to us an excerpt from the upcoming Wings of Fire guidebook, A Guide to the Dragon World. And this excerpt told us a lot about the next edition of the books. And you guys, I think this excerpt hints at the future of Wings of Fire. I'm going to be breaking down the first 18 pages in their entirety, revealing some hidden secrets you actually might have missed. I'll be linking the guidebook excerpt in the description down below, that way you can go read for yourself once you're done with this video. Also, major spoiler warning for all the Wings of Fire books. If you haven't yet finished the main series, please click off. But before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. 3 Moons, Doug1195, and Bombier. Thank you all so much for supporting me. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. While we had the cover released to us a while back, I still think it'll be fun to look at what Easter eggs and characters we can spot on it. There's one dragon from every tribe, so I'll be sharing what I noticed. We have an unknown sandwing in the top left. This isn't Keebly because of the lack of a snout scar, although if it is supposed to be him, this isn't a new error. Below him we have Blue, as can be assumed by the same coloration as he is described and appears on his cover. Even further down is Glory, and below her is a possibly unknown Hivewing. There aren't any glasses visible, so I don't think this is Cricket. The Nightwing featured here also cannot be determined, as the design is pretty generic and we don't know the eye color. We have a Skywing on here that I'm not sure who it is. The design slightly resembles the version of Sky we saw on the cover for the Flames of Hope, but the belly scales seem to be a different shade, so I can't be certain. Below the Skywing is a possibly unknown MudWing. I don't think this is clay because the wing pattern coloration doesn't match up. The top scale and spike colors are way too dark for brown, and the eye shape is completely different. Beneath this dragon is someone who I thought was Tsunami, but upon further inspection, I realized this character is missing the royal seeing pattern on their wings. Although if this was supposed to be her, it's not a new mistake for seeing royalty to be missing their pattern on a cover. Next is an unknown Leafwing, and lastly, we can see Winter. This is evident because of the blue shading that perfectly matches his cover counterpart, down to small details like the scales around his claws being extra blue. If you give the argument for simplification, some of these are very intricately matching to the characters it seems they're representing, which leads me to believe that some of the protagonists we know and others are just random dragons. I'm not sure why this is the case. I never thought analyzing a cover would take this long, wow. And of course, in the center, we have a colored version of the Skywing icon featured on the page of every new chapter. Pretty cool. Off topic of the analysis, but I really like the purple theme present at the beginning of this guidebook. I know it switches to blue later on, but I kind of wish it stayed purple instead of the weird blue we see throughout. We formally start with our table of contents, showing us the page numbers for each chapter. Fortunately, this means the guidebook is only going to be tribe categorized and won't have sections exclusively for folklore, characters, and other tales. Kind of a bummer to me that this information is likely scattered, because we'll probably be receiving less of it because of that. The first bit of content is a letter written to us by the Dragonettes of Destiny. There are bits of text written in the margins for corrections and comments, at least in this part of the guidebook. The DoDs give us a bit of a summary on the purpose of this book, which is to inform the dragons of Pyria and Pantala about the tribes. Because since the dawn of time, there's been a lot of unfortunate prejudice in this world. There's actually a really funny bit at the end of the page where Fatespeaker is writing in the margins and Peril is not a fan of what she's saying. And I'll admit, it got a pretty big laugh out of me. Also, on the backside of the next page, we can see the scorch marks from Peril touching it, which I think is a super cool detail. But on the next page, Starflight introduces us to the topic of the Scorching. Here's where things get really interesting, though. Luna and Dusky did not tell anybody about the events of the Scorching they witnessed, or at least hid some of the most important details. My biggest question is, why? This is very weird, and I 100% think there's a reason for it. Starflight first remarks that we don't know much about how the legend is true. This is a bit odd considering Luna and Dusky lived it through an epic flashback. And the book continually talks about how there's no true way to know something unless you've lived it or talked to somebody who has. This strange detail goes even further later. At first, the story of the Scorching seems normal. It's recounted how there were no dragon tribes, kingdoms, towns, villages, cities, or strongholds in the beginning. Dragons usually lived solitary lives, with the exception of small families. But they stayed far away from the humans, who apparently swarmed the continent in a greater mass than I think anybody ever realized. It goes so far as to say that a dragon could barely set its talons down anywhere without landing on a scavenger. How many humans did the dragons kill? My goodness. The dragons were fine with their caves and the humans living on the land, till the humans began stealing what wasn't theirs. We really got to see how intelligent dragons were even back then, because they were even able to make wood carvings, something we see in Darkstalker Legends. This does kind of further the complaint of no dragon evolution, and how it's kind of backwards after the time of Darkstalker in some ways, but... Now, here's where things get back to what I was talking about earlier. The guidebook discusses what the humans would steal from the dragons, till it finally gets on the topic of the egg that started it all. But nobody knows why the egg was stolen. What? I'll read it to you word for word how it's said in the guidebook. No one knows why a scavenger would steal a dragon egg, but we know he stole it from the wrong dragon. Luna knows. She and Dusty got to see the events that led up to the Scorching firsthand. So why didn't they tell anybody? Whoever wrote this portion, I'll assume it was still Starflight, knows it's a he, but never says the name Cottonmouth, and even flat out admits that no one knows why a scavenger would steal a dragon egg in the first place. The Flames of Hope showed us this. For those who need a refresher, the humans' discontent grew to the point where they were fighting over not just the dragons' things in land, but their own. Rival kingdoms fought to be the strongest and the best, and they went to great extremes to rise to power. It was Cottonmouth's kingdom that thought of the idea of hatching dragon eggs and raising the baby inside to be a killer they could unleash on their foes. Things got bloody after that. The experiments continually failed, resulting in tons of injuries and deaths. The scientists had to try many methods, and stole tons of eggs in the process. But one dragon wasn't going to let them get away with it. We didn't know more on who this dragon was until the guidebook mentions her. While her name was lost to time, she was an old, fierce dragon who lived in the mountain peaks. Her home was one of the last to be discovered by the humans. When they stole her egg, she retaliated. On her own, she could have just wiped out the ones in particular who did it, but she wanted more. This dragon found the others that had been hurt because of the humans' bloodshed, joining them together under her wings. Dragons across the world met up this deadly army, and they began to scorch everything. The ones who fought formed the first dragon tribe, and she became the first dragon queen. We know the rest from there. The surviving humans scattered, hiding out for thousands upon thousands of years to come. It's unknown why exactly now is the time when humans have started to become more open with building cities, though. But I'm going to read to you something even stranger than Luna not telling the others about the truth of the Scorching. When the Scorching was complete, the scavengers who survived scattered into hidey holes across the world. Powerless, insignificant, no more than prey, as they should have been all along. And the world now belonged to dragons, and would for the rest of time. This book is all about clearing up the biases between the tribes and starting a new future free of judgment. So why are the dragons judging all the humans collectively? I don't know if this is intentional and hinting at the rocky future of dragon and human relations, because it would be way too easy if everybody just suddenly held hands and got along, plus they're set up with the Invincible Lord. Or if this was not meant to be the case. It's really hypocritical. The phrasing here just sounds super dark, especially for a society wanting to push aside prejudice. Not all the scavengers are bad. We've seen plenty of good ones. So why is it said like this? Well, we can't be sure. I think this is hinting at the future of Wings of Fire. And if I'm right, things are going to get pretty dark. But my biggest question about the Scorching still remains. Why are Luna and Dusky hiding the truth? The author seems genuinely unaware of what happened, not like it's being hidden on purpose. Why are they keeping this a secret when so much more could be explained and understood if they didn't? I don't know, to be honest, but this certainly is interesting and can't be a mistake. I want to know what's up with this. After that lore-filled section, we move on to the first main one, the opening pages to the discussion on MudWings. Here we get to see some beautiful art of Queen Moorhen near the now-confirmed Mudwing Palace. This is such a gorgeous work of art. We got to see many of the other queens in some old images as well, so this isn't entirely new. But still, it's cool to see where it'll be in the guidebook. We have an updated Mudwing physical description with a letter from Starflight to one of the Jade Mountain Academy students featured below it. He talks to Sepia, a member of the Silver Winglet, about how she'd effaced a library scroll, even though she had the good intention of clearing up some misconceptions. However, Starflight acknowledges that what she said is important. Right under the letter, we got some brand new artwork of a mudwing and baby crocodile, mostly submerged in mud, and I absolutely love it! 𝙒𝙬𝙤𝙬 just knocked out of the park with these illustrations. We then get shown the scroll Sepia wrote on, which was a heavily biased one titled The Slug-like Qualities of Mudwings, written by, you guessed it, a Nightwing. The scroll is honestly quite mean and just shares what 𝙂𝙡𝙗𝙗, the author, noticed about them from a distance. Sepia makes her own instructions, giving us a natural glimpse into the life of mudwings. And a much-needed one at that. Like reminding us that mud makes them stronger, relax, and heals their wounds. Sepia's corrections also tell us a little more about daily mudwing life, especially during the war. They were training with their siblings any chance they could get. We conclude the guidebook with one final letter from Starflight, discussing how he's come up with an assignment for Sepia. She's to write her own scroll on mudwings, this time showing everyone an unbiased and true view on the tribe. While the excerpt ends here, we can assume that what follows is an essay written by Sepia herself, doing exactly that. Can't wait to see what else we get. There have been so many things announced in the past that will be featured, like what happened to Scarlett's husband and who he was, and I'm really hyped to see how we learn about them. I really enjoyed getting to see the natural storytelling and world building here. Most of everything didn't feel forced, and I liked that. But if you haven't already, go check out the first 18 pages for free. It's a fun read and something to get us even more excited for A Guide to the Dragon World, which releases October 3rd, 2023. Which part of the guidebook was your favorite so far? What are you the most pumped to see? And what do you think of the interesting setups and questions here I presented? Let me know down below. I can't help but ponder what's in store for Wings of Fire after seeing some of the secrets lurking in this guidebook. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching this all the way through, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!